So Bryan Kohberger once had the freedom to just drive all around the United States and beyond. From Pennsylvania to Washington State to Idaho to the 1122 King Road house where he wreaked havoc on so many lives. 4 young, beautiful lives of college students he took off the earth, and he caused untold amounts of pain to all the people who loved them. So now Bryan Kohberger can no longer just creep around different houses, enter houses that aren't his, creeping out women, looking in windows and stuff. Today, as I film this, it's Saturday, November 8th, 2025, and Bryan Kohberger is in the custody of the Idaho Department of Corrections. His new home is the Idaho Maximum Security Institution. He's a convicted inmate. I'll just call it Idaho Max. They call him a termer, as it were, as I saw in this new paperwork I requested about Kohberger. A termer, I guess it means an inmate who's serving a sentence for a specified term. So Bryan can't go where he wants, and he is now told where to go. In these 3 latest documents I got, it includes his latest move. What, about 3 weeks ago? I didn't know about this. Within that IMAX, institution in the same J block, but I think I know why they may have moved him. This move happened Tuesday, October 14th, 2025. So these 3 new docs I got yesterday, Friday, November 7th, we'll go over them. This classification doc, really short. I got probably 1 or 2% of what I requested. His housing history and his transfer history. So, Bryan was moved inside of Idaho Max. And now that I've lined up the dates, I'm wondering, was it due to this Lifetime movie announcement? So, according to the docs, and I'll probably upload them so you can see them for yourself if you want, he was moved from J Block 2, 33A to J Block 255A at this IMAX, Idaho Max, by staff request on October 14th. So you know me, I get this info and I start digging. I'm like, what happened around October 14th to cause the staff to move Kohberger to a different place within J Block? Was it because of the TMZ headlines that broke that same day, or was it because of the Lifetime movie tentatively titled The Idaho Murders? It was announced on October 13th at 2:13 p.m. by Deadline, that website. I love them. Now, you might have watched my video maybe about that movie. It's called Can Miles Marry Fill Bryan Kohberger's size 13 Nike shoes in his 6-foot-tall frame in that new Lifetime movie? What do you think? Can actor Miles Marry fill the large size 13 Nike shoes of Bryan Kohberger? Can he fill his 6-foot evil frame? At least in a fictional way, in this new Lifetime movie that was announced. Another ripped from the headlines movie, already causing controversy, already gaining backlash. I was asking, is it too soon? And since I made that video, even more controversy has erupted about this Lifetime movie. We'll talk about most of it in the end, but the gist of it is this actress, Haley Hansen, she's set to star as Kaylee Gonzalez. Now, she recently drew a lot of wrath of Kaylee's sister after Haley posted this video posing along with Kim Kardashian's voice. You know, her saying where she goes, "And I love to do iconic-ish." We'll delve more into that drama too, and maybe we can sort out some confusion. You know how things ripple? There's a ripple effect, and I've seen people just make up stuff. We're going to look at the TikToks that caused all the controversy from some of the actors dancing around. I was able to save some of those TikToks. Let's talk about it at the end. Maybe I'll give it another look. But people come in sometimes with stuff they absolutely make up. Like, for example, let's talk about a couple of them real quick before we get into Bryan Kohberger's move. You know, the controversy recently with a YouTuber who wasn't supposed to stream a court hearing. I don't know why people do this, but okay, we went over the unredacted document, all about that controversy. And I noticed one person left a comment. She just declared she was 100% correct. She said he did not stream that court hearing, even though thousands of people watched it. She wrote, he did not stream that court hearing at all. All he did was talk about it and take notes, and I was there, all caps. And I was thinking to myself, is she just trying to defend him? Why is she saying that when so many thousands of people witnessed it happening? The court, the lawyers got screenshots of it and everything. So I don't know, you have to take things that people say with a grain of salt. I'm saying that to say, because of this Lifetime movie controversy, someone somewhere had recently written, oh yeah, I saw those actors. They had blood all over their clothes, like fake substances all over their clothes, and they were dancing around. And I thought to myself, wait, I never saw that. I never saw these actors in any bloody clothes dancing around. Now, I did see the TikToks of them dancing. I have that. I will play that. I saved that. But as for a person claiming they donned, the victim's bloody clothes and danced around in that, I'm thinking, did someone make that up? Or is someone just trying to say that to amp up what's already a controversial and hurtful type of subject? Anyway, we'll delve more into that drama at the end. So not only is this Lifetime movie drawing plenty of angry responses and petitions and everything, chances are it's the movie announcement that may have gotten Bryan moved within Idaho Max. So I'm looking at the timeline and these new documents I just received yesterday from the IDOC about 22 hours ago. It might have been the Lifetime movie. Of course, IDOC doesn't tell us directly. They tell us it was a staff request, and what we can infer from that and the timeline and the exact time they moved Bryan shows us it might have been the Lifetime movie. Okay, this Idaho Max is located in this Kuna, Idaho. It's a good 5.5-hour drive south of the 1122 King Road house. And it's about 9 miles south of Boise. It's Idaho's only max security prison. It houses some of the state's most disruptive male residents. And we know from public listings and the info I received, Kohberger is housed on the J Block. So let's break this down further. A TMZ story was published October 14th, the same day Bryan was moved, but that was published at 3:19 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. Now, Kuna, Idaho is Mountain Standard Time. So, according to the records I just received, Bryan was moved October 14th, 2025 at 1:22:02 p.m. So per prison records, since Mountain Standard Time is 1 hour later than Pacific Time, it couldn't have been that TMZ piece that caused the move. Now that particular article I'm talking about it's called Bryan Kohberger Took a Plea Deal. Just, days after his sister was named as a trial witness, she was added to the witness list. TMZ claimed, according to court records, Kohberger's sister, Amanda. She was included on the prosecutor's witness list, which meant Bryan may have had to face off against Amanda in court, but he dodged that possibility. She was the only immediate family member on the list. We don't know if it was because of Bryan allegedly stealing his sister's phone way back in the day, and as we've gone over, his dad, as much as he hated to, Bryan's dad, Michael Kohberger, called the police on his own son, tough love kind of thing, after Bryan stole his sister's iPhone, took it to the mall, sold it, probably got stuff with it. But anyway, Bryan entered his guilty plea, so we didn't have a trial, any of that. So maybe it wasn't that news that prompted the move, but it might have been the Lifetime movie news. So that new Lifetime movie, The Idaho Murders, it was announced the previous day, one day before Bryan's move. It was announced on October 13th, 2025 at 2:13 p.m. So Deadline published that article showing, Miles, the leading actor, who will star as Bryan. Since then, we've gotten more of the cast information, more controversy. I don't know when the movie's set to air, but it's already, bringing a lot of questions. So it stands to reason that Bryan was moved that very next day in an effort to stem the flow of publicity, more attention coming his way. Prisons do that with high-profile clients, especially. Once some new news comes about, it's like, oh no, there's more attention towards him coming. But let's look at the timeline to break it down. You guys know I love a timeline. On July 2nd, 2025, that's when Kohberger, he entered his 4 guilty pleas. He stood up, and then you guys know, you were probably watching, 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of burglary. Now, July 23rd, 2025, that's when he was sentenced to the 4 consecutive life sentences, no possibility of parole, plus an extra 10 years for the burglary count. So that all happened July 23rd. A lot more happened according to the IDOC, the transfer history document. You know, we saw those powerful victim impact statements and everything. So the document says that same day, July 23rd, there's a custody intake. So he's leaving Ada County Jail, and then there's another entry of facility to facility, another transfer basically from county jail to Idaho Max. Then at 3:41 p.m. July 23rd, now that facility to facility transfer apparently took place at 3:41 p.m. So it was kind of late that afternoon, apparently after all the events of the day. He's off in Idaho Max. Now, per KTVB, it lines up with my documents. IDOC confirmed that Bryan was moved to this J block on Tuesday, July 29th, less than 1 week after the judge gave him his life sentence. This J block we're talking about, I keep trying to find photos of it. I've found photos of the Idaho Max prison, but I wanted to really see the J block unit. Maybe they kind of keep it under wraps for a reason, you know. It houses up to 128 people in general population. Some of them are in protective custody, long-term restrictive housing, and they have the death row inmates, which some people expected Bryan to be one of, but he's not. July 29th, 2025. So this is the day, according to KTVB, that Bryan was moved to solitary confinement. And before long, about 2 weeks later, we would see that sneaked video, surreptitious video taken of Bryan in his little solitary confinement or whatever. But still, on July 29th at 10:45 a.m., he's in that big medical 103A at the Idaho Max Security Institution. So it was that huge cell. Again, the documents list him on July 29th, facility to facility, initial intake. I guess they keep him in that medical, especially a guy like Bryan Kohberger with all this attention on him. They keep him in that area for a while. Now it says July 29th again, offender moves location. So this was a little weird to me. The documents say he moved from Idaho Maximum Security Institution to the Idaho State Correctional Institution. So that same day, it just lists a little bit later, July 29th at 1:28:03 p.m. I guess the document is just listing July 29th, 1:28:03 p.m. He moves intra-facility to this J block 233A. Okay, so he's there. But then a surprise move comes October 14th. But what happened in between here? First of all, we had that leaked photo, that leaked jail surveillance video. August 14th, 2025, the jail surveillance video of Bryan leaks online. Now, we don't know the exact date that video was taken. It looked like it was taken while Bryan was still in that medical 103A type of cell. It was big, it was huge. You could almost see like the medical bed. Okay, but Bryan, 6 days later, you know, he was only in that medical cell, I guess, about 6 days, maybe being evaluated, the things they have to accomplish before they move an inmate to a more permanent location. He was only in that medical cell about 6 days, from July 23rd to July 29th. So whoever took that video, it wasn't released until about August 14th. It doesn't mean it was taken August 14th. I didn't see any actual dates, you know, no timestamps on the video. And the person, whoever took it, allegedly doesn't even work at the prison anymore. They're not getting in any sort of trouble from the headlines I read. So he was out of there by July 29th. The video leaked August 14th. But according to my records, nothing happened. It's not like after that video leaked, the next day they moved Bryan again. No, they didn't move him until October 14th, 1:22 p.m. from the 1J block 233A to J block 255A. According to the IDOC, it was because of a staff request. So he was moved for a specific reason, and it wasn't because of that leaked surveillance video. They would have done it earlier, like August 15th or something. No, he was, I guess, chilling still in the 1J block until October 14th. So why? Why this staff request? Let's dig into what the IDOC told me. So they got this public records request from me. I kind of wanted to give it a little time, get Bryan in that Idaho Max, give him time to, obviously he's gotten money on his books. We don't know what he's got on his books in IMAX, and you'll see. But we know from the recent hearing, he's had 5 figures put on his books from family when he was in, Ada County Jail, and was it in Latah County Jail? I've never been able to get his commissary records, his phone call records. Forget even trying to get the audio. I'm just trying to see his listing or how many calls he's making, how much money he's spending. Like, that's kept so under wraps. And the IDOC didn't give me much more either. I put in a public records request November 4th. I wanted all these things, these records for Bryan Christopher Kohberger. He was born November 21st. Look who has a birthday coming up, 1994. So Bryan should celebrate his 31st birthday coming up soon behind bars. He won't be getting that cute little birthday card like with the dino and Teddy Roosevelt on it. Remember, we looked at that stuff. Anyway, he's at IMAX, and I was like, give me his intake, booking records, transfer records, classification and housing records. I love ChatGPT. They help me write a lot of public records requests. Like, I already knew how to do them, thank God, but it helps improve what to ask for, who to ask. Anyway, I wanted all his visitation logs, approved visitors list, his jail phone call audio files, video visitation footage, disciplinary records, incident logs, medical, any mental health summaries, his commissary, correspondence, property records, release or transport records, including transport videos, I asked. Any admin or incident reports mentioning Bryan Kohberger. So I'm like, if any of these are exempt from disclosure, just provide the portions that are not exempt. Cite the specific statutory laws that you are relying on to keep this information from us. I want electronic copies and let me know if there's any cost. It's made for journalistic and public information purposes. It's in the interest of the public. Alrighty, so they got back to me. They had requested, I think it was them, yeah. Can you please specify dates? So I went through and was like, okay, from the date of his intake until the present day. And then they finally came back and at least gave me 3 documents. I think Ada County, Latah County, I can't remember what they've given me. I'll have to look. Ada County's like, this is all I can release. It's just 1 page and it's just like his mugshot and not much more info. IDOC is like, okay, we can't release medical info, makes sense, blah, blah, blah. They can't release resident mail records. They can't release resident phone records. No telephone calls, no personal mail, no electronics, all exempt from disclosure. Remember in the Chris Watts case, we got to see all his letters and discovery and all that stuff. I wonder if we'll see any, I don't know, Idaho is so different. I was just thinking from the state's attorney's office, will there be more anything like this related released? So you need a court order for certain things. Okay, they also can't release incident reports, concern forms, even though we got some of those from, I guess, while he was still in Latah County Jail. I thought we had gotten some from Idaho Max, though. Maybe not. Remember, Bryan was complaining about all this stuff. He couldn't figure out JPay. He couldn't figure out this or that. I don't know. Now it says no responsive records found regarding visitation logs, approved visitors list, and commissary records. And I'm like, what? Wait a minute. That dude has been there since the end of July. It is now November. And why do you say no records found regarding visitation logs, his approved visitors list, and commissary records? I'm like, I know he's ordering stuff. I had to respond to that later. But I had to talk to ChatGPT a little bit too, like, why do you think this move was made? Now, take it with a grain of salt, because I was arguing with ChatGPT earlier. I'm like arguing with a non-human. I'm arguing with a computer. At first, ChatGPT is like, no, Kohberger is pre-trial. He's still in Latah County Jail. I'm like, you are incorrect, And we had to go back and forth, and then they're finally like, oh yeah, he entered his guilty plea. But anyway, ChatGPT surmises J-block protective custody cells differ by the camera coverage angles, proximity to the staff corridor, the level of visibility and observation frequency, separation from other high-risk or high-profile inmates, and acoustic isolation. That's interesting. So this is saying the move from the J Block 233A over to J Block 255A, it specifically corresponds to a shift to a cell, perhaps with increased visual staff observation, fewer blind spots. So who knows what these exact cells look like, but maybe it's one where they can directly keep an eye on Kohberger. Standard procedure for high-profile defendants, defendants under threat, defendants requiring controlled movement pathways, which he really would. If they're moving him anywhere, I'm sure everything's like locked down almost. And it says the wording staff request equals, okay, this isn't due to discipline, most likely his behavior, but security administration. And indeed, I didn't see, as we go through these documents, it looks like his record is pretty clean so far as being an Idaho max. So now I'm thinking, I was asking ChatGPT, why October 14th, 2025 specifically? I could be correct about my deadline Lifetime movie announcement, but they're also saying the data aligns with a security audit cycle that occurs quarterly at Idaho Max. Maybe standard cell rotation schedule for admin seg tier 1, reassessment of protective custody placement following national media surges. So they're saying it could be triggered by renewed media coverage, external threats, internal chatter regarding indicating a risk of harm. It says nothing about it indicates it's due to punishment, behavioral issues, a mental health crisis. It's purely a security-driven repositioning. I've heard of, different inmates getting moved when they have something special going on, like whomever, maybe not even moved, just extra attention. Like Scott Peterson, if there's some new movie coming out about him, maybe there'll be a little bit more attention on him at the prison, because it's like renewed interest. And even if the prisoners or inmates get wind of it, it's all this attention on that inmate. So I'm thinking, why now this J Block move specifically? ChatGPT is claiming J Block Tier 2 at IMAX. This protective custody admin seg, everyone in that tier is separated from general population, highly monitored. They're in cells with different levels of visibility and acoustic control. So I'm like, wow, is that impacting Bryan? I don't know. So the move might have been because of an operational reason, surveillance upgrade. It's saying 55A has a better camera angle and fewer blind spots. Do they know this for sure, or are they guessing? I don't know. They didn't even know initially Bryan was in this prison. Staff proximity, maybe 55A is closer to the central officer corridor. Threat, moves can occur if he's been threatened. Noise, communication, isolation. It can prevent voice contact attempts between cells. We've seen all kinds of crazy stories about inmates. Not only talking like through the vents or whatever, but remember that one couple who passed like semen between the cells and the woman got pregnant? I mean, oh my goodness. Routine quarterly assessment, we don't know. But the notation staff request likely means it wasn't due to, anything Bryan doing bad stuff there. Okay, so finally, I just emailed IDOC back like, thank you, but why did you say there's no responsive records found regarding visitation logs, approved visitor list, and commissary records? I said, are you telling me he's had no approved visitors list and has ordered no commissary? I said, that doesn't seem correct, but thanks and please advise. I mean, he just got there in July and his family apparently has shelled out all this money. His mom and his sister came to the hearings all the way out west. I would gather maybe they're still putting money on his books. Have they not gone through the process to get on the visitors list? Has he ordered no commissary at all since November? Have they cut him off? Is he not getting any more money? That would be kind of weird. I would understand it though. I mean, the way Bryan treated his mom and sis, when they came all the way out west and they came into that courtroom despite all the public ire, some people have against them. They were crying, they were upset. Bryan supposedly didn't even look at his family. And so were they like, look, leave him to God, leave him to heaven, and we're not going to give him any more money? I doubt it. As often as he spoke with his mom, I bet you she's still getting money over to him, putting money on his books. But I'm thinking, why are they saying this? Is it because of the Idaho Max visiting schedule? So on their website, it says visiting is offered 4 days a week, Thursday through Sunday, closed Monday through Wednesday. And I'm sure they mean physical visiting. I don't know about video visits if they have those. There are a couple of J Block groups. There's J Block Tier 1 that has contact. So I don't know if that means, people get to sit in a room with their loved one or whoever they're visiting in there. And then there's J Block Tier 2 and Tier 3, no contact. We'll see what comes up with that. More info maybe later. I plan to, periodically, I like to do all these records requests to see what's happening with different cases, even after they've been sentenced. The curiosity is still there. Obviously, that's why this Lifetime movie is being made. Plenty of controversy. Now, this actress made a little TikTok video. She's starring as Kaylee in the Lifetime movie coming out. It's being filmed pretty quickly. You can watch my other video for more details. Lifetime always does this. I mean, a lot of places do this. Netflix, different places, of course. They create movies based on these famous, infamous crimes. So, unfortunately, in this world of social media, I've seen it happen, the reaction of either the victim's loved ones or the true crime world. Like there was some movie made about the Chris Watts case. And I remember the actress, she had just posted, a simple photo. She wasn't doing a TikTok dance or anything. She was on set and she was playing Nicole Kessinger. And she just posted a simple little selfie with an actor or someone on set. And she said, "That's a wrap for NK." I thought it was just a simple photo. But the comments that flooded in, she was getting all these like poop emojis. And I felt like people were taking their anger out on Chris Watts' mistress, Nicole, on this actress. Okay, so she ended up deleting that photo and whatever, went the way of the wind. I'm sure went on to another movie or whatever. She did a great job. But, okay, these actors now creating the TikTok videos, they're young and I'm sure they're not thinking, maybe they're not even true crime followers. Maybe they are just, okay, I want to be an actor. This is my skill. This is another job to me. And they haven't, been trained on being a little more sensitive. But still, I've never seen any of them dancing around in stained clothing or anything, as one person said. I'd have to look. Okay. But the young girl playing Kaylee, really pretty. She makes a cute little video. I don't know, I shouldn't call it cute, you know what I mean, because it's about real victims. But with her, she's, just posing or whatever, and she has that Kim Kardashian, and I love to do iconic-ish. So Kaylee's sister reacts to it. She makes a video, says, "That's not iconic-ish, okay?"
Hi, so that's not iconic shit. My sister, Kaylee Jade Gonzalez, isn't a fucking character. You're young, so maybe you don't know. But I've looked at the past stuff you've done, and I think you know. There is such a thing as defamation, which can be crushing to a career. Not that you really have one, but if you'd like one, maybe you should just think about it. Maybe you should just think about if Kaylee was your sister. Maybe you should just think about what you put out into the world, like dancing around in between scenes. Maybe you should think about the projects that you take on. Maybe you should think that if you lay with dogs, you might get fleas. So, maybe you should just think. You look like you might be capable of it. Look, hear me out. All I'm saying is that I've seen higher levels of performance in actresses from pornography. That's all I have to say.
Olivia says, maybe you should think about what you put out there. If you lay with dogs, you might get fleas. There's wording or talk about defamation lawsuits. It gets so controversial. I feel like I don't have a dog in this fight, of course. I have so much sympathy for the victims and their families. And I'm sure how the victims are going to be portrayed. A lot of the backlash is that A lot of places, of course, don't contact the victims' loved ones to say, can we make this movie? Or, even these YouTube videos, a lot of us, of course, we don't necessarily have access to the victims' loved ones to say, what do you think about me saying this or that? Or it's controversial. Your heart goes out to people. How would we feel, heaven forbid, if any of our family members experience what they have been through and then Lifetime makes a movie out of it? I know it's easy to say, oh yeah, they're just actors, they're just getting a job and they're just doing the next job. But I really am listening. I'm understanding what is being said here. Listening more to victims' families, how they feel, what is offensive to them. And so, yeah, I know the actors may have seen it as, we're the TikTok generation, we're young, we're just blowing off steam in between takes, but it's not necessarily received that way. So I think a lot of those videos may have been taken down. There is a good interview I watched with Bryan Kohberger about the controversy. He spoke with Gabby Petito's mom. She was really enlightening too, and it made me think about perhaps the laws changing. She talked about the Petitos, all of them, the whole family basically, being such public figures now. Anyone could go and make a movie about them. And I would hate that. I would hate someone creating some fictionalized story. I guess that's why I rely on body cam video footage so much. And like people praised The Perfect Neighbor. I love the way that documentary was done, the way it was edited. It was so well done. It used actual real life footage to tell the story of what happened, how a life was taken, a mom from her children. And so I don't even think there was any narration. It just relied on, okay, all the cops, these are all the times they were called to this neighborhood in Florida because of this one woman, this perfect neighbor. And then they used 911 call audio, more body cam, and police interviews. That's why I love going for the real evidence. I don't want to just, make up stuff in my head. That documentary, and that's why I tend to go more towards a documentary style, it told the entire story of that entire crime without, interjecting. And then this is what happened. No, it showed the woman, was her name Susan, sitting there and her lack of care and all of that. So I'm saying all this to say, I guess I'm kind of torn. Obviously, these Lifetime movies are very popular. It's not just Lifetime. I mean, different people do them to varying degrees. I guess it's just how tactfully you do it. I liked the projects that included the victim's family, like the Petitos or the Idaho 4, like all the projects that had their input. Then they feel a little more trustworthy or a little more like you get to know the victims for real and not some artist's rendition of the crime. Even as much as I love Ryan Murphy, his Ed Gein story, his monster docuseries, or it wasn't quite a docuseries, it was more like a drama. Wow. I mean, Ed Gein's, of course, his crimes happened decades ago, and so we don't have, police reports per se and body cam videos. No, of course not, and all these things. So there was a lot more space to take dramatic creative license with it. So he did that with the story. But even then, it forced me to keep Googling, wait a minute, did Ed Gein really do this? Was he really inspired by Ted Bundy or vice versa? I had to keep Googling watching that series to figure out what was true and what wasn't. And a lot of it was dramatic license or his rendition of what was going on in Ed Gein's head. So I don't know. Lifetime creates these movies. I know there's calls or petitions to boycott it, don't watch it. And we don't want to sound insensitive, but obviously Lifetime, these movies, even though they don't release, a lot of their stats, it's not like a YouTube video, you can see how many views it gets. Obviously, these movies are popular enough with enough people watching for them to continue to make them. And again, they can say, like they say, it could be to spread awareness, or it could be to, like in Gabby Petito's situation, to spread awareness about domestic violence. But Gabby's mom was saying, yeah, okay, it was just really standard, the stuff you assume about DV situations. It's like I wanted to ask her what was real and what wasn't. I don't know if it was the Lifetime movie or not, where it showed Gabby like in the car with Bryan firing off a weapon, and I wanted to ask her, did that really happen? Was that on Lifetime, or was that on the project that the families had input? Those are the kind of things I want to know, like, is this real or is this just being made up? And if it's just being made up, we can't necessarily call it true crime. Like, I don't want the lines to get so blurred. And beyond that, I don't want to be disrespectful to family members. Hopefully, the family members can have their own input about whatever projects they would want to create. However, they want to see Kaylee and Ethan and Maddie and Xana portrayed, if at all. But that was Gabby Petito's mom's deal. She's like, the laws in this country, she's like, Bryan, basically Bryan Inton, public figure, someone could make a movie about him. But I'm thinking, who would want to do that? I don't want to do that. I wouldn't want it to be based on lies. I mean, right now I'm watching like the Tamara Hall show about the Judge Faith and Kenny, her husband's situation, where this YouTuber got exposed because he was making up complete lies about the couple because he knew that's what sells on YouTube. People were digging into these lies, and they got a lawyer and they figured out who was behind the YouTube videos. And so I like that. But my whole point is that it's difficult. Ever since Truman Capote wrote In Cold Blood, and the way he wrote it, it was based on a true crime, but it was kind of written like a novel. And I feel like that was the start of this whole true crime genre told in a compelling manner. I mean, technically, it's probably been going on since Shakespeare, and before Shakespeare, putting on plays in front of these rapt audiences, probably based on true stories. The desire is always going to be there. When such a horrible crime happens, all of us watching, all of us survivors, everyone, the main question will always be why. So people will always watch these dramas or reenactments, or, almost looking for that missing puzzle piece, even though we might not ever find it, but just why? What happened in Bryan's childhood? Was he born this way? What happened to him that he decided it was okay for him to drive all the way to Washington and take 4 lives? Where did that switch get flipped? What happened in his brain? As he fights even paying for the urns. I mean, it's ridiculous. So, of course, there's controversy. Of course, people will still watch. It's difficult. People can get shouted down in the public by folks who are saying, boycott, boycott, don't watch it, how dare you? To the point where people just remain quiet and they just watch it in the comfort of their own homes. They either like the Lifetime movies, they don't, whatever, but they end up watching it because they don't want to come out against the voices shouting them down to say, how could you, don't watch it, The loudest voices sometimes are not the majority. And it's not that people are trying to be insensitive. We are just all true crime followers. And in the United States, it's always been legal pretty much to just make a movie based on a true crime. Now, of course, you shouldn't defame or libel or slander anyone, of course, but those laws are very specific, and some people have, won against certain cases. It's difficult. Let me read Job 32, 7 through 8 before I finish telling you one more thing about these documents. I thought age should speak. Advanced years should teach wisdom, but it is the spirit of a person, the breath of the Almighty, that gives them understanding. And that's what I always want. I always want God's understanding about how to do this tactfully. How do you tell the story of victims without glorifying the perpetrator or creating all these crazy conspiracy theories, which seems to be so popular these days? I just don't understand that part. But also just do it with tact and grace and truth without going overboard. Okay, so again, I have this IDOC housing history. It's only 1 page long, just giving you specific times about when Bryan was moved in and out of the Idaho Max different parts intra facility, and the staff request to move him out. One thing I found interesting, which I didn't tell you, this 5-page reclassification security level score sheet from IDOC. He was reviewed apparently the day after he got there. So this makes sense. The day after he got there, July 24th, and it says his next review date was July 28th. So that's why he was moved on the 29th. So this was all planned. That's when they called him the termer. Severity of current offense, high severity. Escape history, none. Severity of prior felony convictions, low severity or no prior felony convictions. Current age from 24 to 31, because it's showing his age is 30. Now this is interesting, institutional behavior. It says no class A or B DOR in the last 12 months. So I looked that up, and it says in prison context, DOR most likely stands for disciplinary offense report. So that means he has not committed any severe violations in the past year. But of course he hasn't been there the whole year, but it looks like for the time he's been there, he hasn't committed anything serious in prison. This full-term release, this date is interesting. It always says December 28th, the year is 9999. They're like almost until the year 10,000, you know? And the only thing redacted, they noted his date of birth, even though we know his exact date of birth. And then you'll see the IDOC transfer history, which doesn't have times, but it's more like July 23rd, okay, he's going from Ada County Jail to Idaho Max. And then it has that July 29th, Idaho Max Security Institution to Idaho State Correctional. And then from Idaho State Correctional back to Idaho Max. So it seems like that was just some kind of, I don't know, initial intake, some kind of process. So whenever IDOC gets back to me about my final questions, if they do, hopefully they will, I might give you a little update or put an update somewhere down below. But I appreciate you watching all of this, and I don't know, I should do like some kind of a poll asking people, will you watch the Lifetime movie? No judgment here. Or will you not? Will you boycott it? I think there's so many more people out there who might just want to watch, which doesn't mean they are disrespecting the victims or that they want to disrespect the victims. I get it. I understand about, you know, you've got to be tactful about it. Do you see it as just the actors doing a job they were meant to do? It gets dicey. You see what I mean? You don't want to, you know, how can you tell a victim's family how to feel? You can't. It's always ironic when people try and tell you, this is no correlation, but if someone's telling you how to do your job, if you're a credit card manager at some huge company, man, I can only imagine what your day-to-day tasks might be, but I'm not there. I don't know how to do your job. And it's very interesting to me too. Like when some people say, they tell you like what the job of a true crimer is, or even a YouTuber, what the job is, and they try and tell you what you're doing. And you're like, if you've never done it, you don't know what it's like. And the same thing with actors. But on that note, it's like, how can people tell victims' families how to feel if no one's been through it? We haven't been through their pain. We haven't been through their hurt, their trauma. I can't imagine. And then having someone portray your sister that you lost, or even portray you, it just really makes me think long and hard about, I don't know, how to portray things. I get both arguments. Some people are saying, look, it's just actors doing a job. These movies have been made for a long time based on plenty of crimes. But then on this side, the victims' families, some of them are like, either I won't watch, or, you know, this shouldn't be created, threatening lawsuits. Maybe it will change some laws, you know. There is a way, I think hopefully they can look into it somehow to have legal protections against a person's names. And of course, I don't know how to do all that stuff. Hopefully they'll consult a lawyer, because I get it. You know, someone shouldn't be able to take a real person's name, Kaylee Gonzalez, and say, this is everything Kaylee did, if it's a lie. So I understand that hurt. I wouldn't want that. Anyway, you see the dilemma. So thank you so much for watching all this. Take care. Stay tuned. I have more body cam coming. I have more body cam coming in a different case I paid for yesterday, thank God. Hopefully it'll be here Monday. I think you guys will be really interested in this case. Take care.